Hi. So this is just going to be a quick review of the code that we've done so far in preparation for the final exam, which is going to give you that code or give you code similar to it and ask you to do something with it, or to build a little bit of your own as you've been doing for the second assignment. Alright. So let's remember that when we open a new node project, the thing we got to do is we start by just trying to figure out what's going on. Easiest way to do that is start with the package.json, which will tell us what the entry is. So if I look at my scripts in my package.json, I see the start script says Expo start. Not super helpful, but if I look at main, there's this expo/entry.js, which a lot of complex stuff, but let's just open the app. So I got my app. We know that this is an Expo app. So we know that we're going to deal with a lot of React-related stuff. So with our basic knowledge of React, we can go through this pretty easily. The imports up top, a lot of them are grabbing stuff from React and React Native. The moment I see React Native, I know likely it's an app of some sort. And then I see a bunch of these imports from components. So I see that what the project does is it creates the components separate and puts them in. Now, how does the app itself work? The app itself works is we've got this default function app. So I've got my app, that's one thing, that's what's running. Right, the way I know that that's running is because that's what's being exported. If I've got a default export, that's what I expect to be used out of this app. So if I look into it, I go over here, I've got my status, I've got request permissions, right? And these are from media library use permissions, and then I see just a couple of other states. I've got selected image, I've got show app, I've got set is modal visible, I've got set pick emoji, right? And I've got my image ref. Followed by if status equals null, request permissions. I know this just from in general knowing how permissions work in apps. I know exactly what this is asking. This is saying, hey, if I don't have the permissions, grab them. What's status? And then I can look up above and I can quickly see, oh, status and request permissions are media library use permissions. And if I'm not sure what that is, then I can always open up, I can always look up, oh, it's the Expo media library. And I can always quickly Google something like that just to see what the Expo media library is. So if I just open, right, and I just do a quick Google search for Expo Media Library, I can pull up the Expo docs, and the Expo Media Library provides access to users' media library, allowing them to access their existing images from your app as well as save new ones. You can also subscribe to any updates made, right? So it does exactly what I expect it to do. It's the tool that uses the permissions for the device's media library, right? So if we go back to our code, we can take a look a little bit further, the rest of this, right? So we've got our pick image async. I've got a couple of functions here, right? I've got my on reset, on add sticker, on modal close, on save image async, right? So I've got a couple of different things here, and I know what they all are because they're named well, right? This is the function to pick an image. This is the function to reset my app. This is the function to add a sticker. This is a function on modal close, and this is a function to save it when I close the modal, when I try to save the image, right? And each of these I can see how they work. So for example, over here I can see, oh wait, saving image actually works different for the web app than it does, right? It's based on platform. The app itself, I see we've got the gesture handler view, and then I've got the root view, and then I've got the views inside of it. And as we go through it, we slowly but surely see I've got a view that has a image viewer in it. And then I've got optional views based on, hey, do I want to show the options? If I show the options, then I display the options. Otherwise, I'm displaying choose image. Oh, so either I choose the image or I can apply my options to it, right? And of course, the easy way to check exactly what's happening is to run the app itself. So I know it's npm run start because I checked my package.json earlier. So I run the start option, and now it's going to take a moment to start, but as it does that, we will continue looking. And then we see that there's a bunch of style sheets at the bottom. If we're curious about a particular object, like if we're looking over here and we see image viewer, right, and I can control click on image viewer and it'll open up that component for me. And I see really quickly that that component literally just takes in a placeholder image source and a selected image source and We'll set the image. Alright, it's ready to display, so we'll open that up quickly. Right, and we're back here to my thing. If I choose my image, I can go to my pictures and I can select my trusty little goose. And I can click the little plus, and we can add donut, and I can move it around, and we can double click on it to enlarge it. Now we give the goose a little robot, a little donut on his head. Now we can put the donut over there. Anyway, okay, so now I've seen, like, I've gone and I've used the app and I see how it works. So now when I jump back to my code, what I can do is I can quickly take a look at it and see, oh, what's going on, right? So I've got my app and I've got, now that I know what the options are, I have a little bit of a better understanding of, oh, this is what's going here, this is what's going there. I also know that, like, anything in squiggly brackets means it's going to be potentially optional, right? Especially I've got the show options, which is some code followed by a question mark, and then that's conditional rendering there. All right. That is just a quick way to go through the code and a quick review of the code. So I've got a bunch of those components which are nicely stored separately. Right, I've got my emoji list, I've got my emoji picker, I've got the stickers, I've got the icon button, I've got the image viewer that we've already opened, and I've got the app itself. And the app imports all of these and uses them, and I can see where they're being used or the details of them over here. As well as above, I can see the functions being called, right? Where 90% of these are just like on reset, for example, we set show options to false, right? Which is a state stored in the app, and this is where the nature of React in general comes in, because React is using all these different states, and we're just playing around with that state, and we're using those states to populate up and down. All right, that is pretty much all it is. So for the final, which we'll talk about a little bit more, I believe next week is not actually the final. No, next class. Yeah, so there's this video, which is just a quick review, and then there's the final next class, and the next class we have together, which will be in person. And you'll just be given some basic code, and I'll ask you to add a feature to it. So it should not be too difficult, but it will require you'll be able to look at the code and understanding it. If you have any questions, please reach out to me via Mio, and enjoy the week.